All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for Proactive Fenestration Mitigation. It's presented by the folks at PGT Windows and Doors. We've got Nancy Fine on today and Chris Morgan. Nancy's going to be here giving our presentation for the CEU portion of today's event, and we've got Chris on board as well to help out with answering any questions that you might have. Before we get started with the AIA-approved portion of today's webinar, we're going to give a quick little intro about some exciting stuff Acelab has going on. My colleague Helen is here from Acelab. She's our Director of Architect Experience, and we're helping out with hosting today's event. So Helen, feel free to get started, and then I'll just have a few housekeeping items before we pass it on over to you, Nancy.
Oh, sounds great. Hey, everyone. So I'm Helen. I am the Director of Architect Experience here at Acelab, and I want to talk today about some fun stuff that's coming up, but also speak with you about what to expect after this webinar. So all of y'all have your Acelab account. After this webinar, we will then set up a conversation for you within your Acelab account with Nancy and Chris and their team. You'll see that by going up to Workspace and then Conversations. Once we set up that conversation for you, you'll also get an email. So keep an eye out for that email, and then you can respond directly from your inbox, and that will also put the record into your conversations within Acelab. The idea here is that Acelab becomes kind of your portal, and everyone also that's on your team can see that conversation as well. When I used to practice, there's always that like panic moment where someone's like, what's the lead time? And then the person that has been talking to the rep is out of the office. So we're trying to avoid that issue for you. So keep that in mind. You're also going to get an email from myself, from my colleague Evelyn, probably also a phone call to make sure we have everything going for your project that you need. And then you'll probably usually get about one other email from us as well, making sure everything's going well. We'll also be sharing some other resources for you. All right, so other fun stuff, what's coming out this coming fall in Acelab. Right now, y'all all have the availability to do comparisons. So what our team does is we take the products that you've saved. If BIM, CADs, and specs are publicly available, you'd see them here too. But the idea is that our team puts together all the different parameters that are important based on the building category you're looking at, and you'll be able to see all this information side by side across different products. This exists now in the platform, but what's going to come out soon is within this comparisons, everything you save will also turn into a schedule. The idea here is that you can then export this as a CSV, drop it into your drawing sets or whatever other software you might need or use, saving you some time, kind of completing that workflow for you. Other cool things that you can do is you can also take some of your products that maybe you use a lot, select those, go ahead and drop them into your next project. So that's another idea for you and ways you can use Acelab, build out a library of your frequently used products, and then you can just kind of move those around as you need to. So really excited about this. All these columns are going to be custom for you. You can adjust them as you need to. And then last but not least, this will also give you a starting point for a spec book. So whatever you have saved there, again, you're going to get it dropped in here. And you can export this as well. I look at the schedules. Hopefully it's a fairly complete workflow for y'all. Spec Planner, you're probably going to still need to do some editing there, but we're giving you a really nice jumping off point. This is all going to be live around September. However, we are doing an early access program. So if you want to meet with me, we can talk about your firm structure, some projects you have coming up, and we can stand up your library and then get you rolling on your projects with this in July. So you can use this to export and put into your drawing sets. I'll put my meeting link in the conversation here, but I hope you'll have a great webinar. Thanks for letting me join, and I'll pass that back to y'all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Helen. Yeah, so there's a quick poll up if you want to sign up for a demo or for some early access to that tool through the poll. Feel free to say yes to that. Also keep an eye out in the chat for Helen's meeting link, and you can just schedule a time directly there. Few last housekeeping items for me before we get started. This was an AIA CEU approved event. We did ask for AIA numbers upon registration, but if you're worried you didn't submit it there, I'm going to send over a form in the chat momentarily where you can submit your AIA number, and you can also request a certificate through that form. Other than that, I just want to encourage folks to please feel free to use the Q&A to ask any questions throughout today's presentation. We'll be keeping an eye on those, and we'll have some time to get to some questions live during today's event. If we don't get to your question, we will have a record of it so that you can be followed up with after the webinar. All right, that should be it for me from now. Nancy, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen and we can go ahead and get started with today's presentation.
Okay, let me share my screen. One moment. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Present in Teams, wrong. Okay, where is my share? Is it right in this little?
It should be a green button wherever your like Zoom controls are. So,
Okay, well, of course I would screw up
arrow.
at this part. I have present in Teams, but I don't know. Oh, I'm in Teams. That's the problem. Hold on a second. Oh, share screen. Got it. Okay. There we are. Are we good now?
I don't think you're sharing yet, so you might need to select the window when you click that share screen button. And then click share again.
Oh, okay. Not doing it. 1 second. Let me get back out of here. Let me go back to you. Sorry, I apologize. So I click share screen, the green button.
And then you select your window with the presentation, and then you click share in the bottom right there.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Oh gosh, okay. Well, I'm having a hard time here. Oh, Zoom. I'm back on you here, Bo. I did share screen. And then what am I doing? Share?
Yep, click share. There we go. Thanks.
Okay, so we're there now, correct?
Yes, we can see your screen. Looks like we're up on Acelab. Now we're on your PowerPoint. Perfect.
Okay, we're good. Great. Okay, folks, sorry about that.
Awesome.
Maybe I got the worst part over. So thanks for joining.
That's how I felt last week.
I appreciate Acelab for giving us this opportunity, and I appreciate Chris for backing me up here. Very excited to be part of this team. I'll just give you a snapshot of my background. I've been in architectural specifications, based in South Florida, but covering national accounts as well for 30 years. I'm currently based in West Palm, and I cover all kinds of specifications for commercial and luxury residential properties. So you see the information on the front about the course name, Proactive Fenestration Mitigation. And without further ado, we'll start. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If I don't know the answer and Chris doesn't know the answer, then we'll get you the answer as soon as possible. So enjoy the presentation, and I hope you learned something. This is just a snapshot again of some of the brands that we are under the umbrella of for PGT. We can talk more about what we do with each of those after the presentation. This material is copyrighted. We always have to put that slide in there. And this just talks a little bit about that we are a registered provider with AIA. The objective of this course is, hold on 1 second, I'm just going to move this little box away so I could read my own thing here. Whoops, let me go back here. Sorry. Whoops. I got to go backwards. I don't know how that happened. Okay, here we are. So the objective is to provide a better understanding of the advantages of specifying impact-resistant laminated glass and proactively mitigate fenestration failures. So in English, what that means is we all know what proactive means. It means doing something forward-thinking and not in the rearview mirror. So we want to mitigate. We want to keep fenestration values to a minimum. And fenestration, as you probably all know, refers to the arrangement and design of windows and doors on the elevations of a building. So we want to protect those elements in the best way we can. FEMA obviously plays a big role in what we do as far as guidelines and based on historical information. And so FEMA has an estimate, which is as recent as 2023, that for every dollar you spend mitigating, you're preventing $6 in future losses. I have quite a few links I'm going to share with you. Some of them are videos, some of them are just quick reads. And so the first one that we have here is the site for mitigation. It's not work. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Let's see. Okay, well,
We're back on Safari. I think you might need to switch over to the presentation tab again.
okay. Let's see. I'll try it one more time. If it doesn't work, we'll just wing it. Okay. Let's see what happens. Oh, there we are. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so basically it's just indicating the site where you can go to for information, and it addresses mostly directly to homeowners, which of course we are not that audience, but it is a good insight view into what we need to think about when we're protecting our buildings. And we know that there's no way to eliminate the exposure, but of course, we're going to do the best job that we can to minimize it. So according to the National Institute of Building, one of the best ways to safeguard ourselves, and this is, a bird's eye view of the communities at large, is to institute hazard resistant codes. And this website, let's see, is it coming up?
Looks like it's loading, so should come up soon.
No? All right, let me do it again. No, that's not it. Hold on. That's it. Okay, one second. Okay, so here on the same site, but five reasons building code should matter. In the state of Florida, the code was just updated in 2024. There's not a great deal of change, but it's always a good idea to familiarize yourself with that code. And I know that we, amongst many other companies, offer courses, some of which are CEUs, to bring yourself up to date on what the latest codes are. And, the codes try to keep up with reality. It's not always the case. I know that this year, for instance, it became apparent that, that wind speeds are rapidly increasing in the situation of hurricanes. So that's obviously an issue. And unfortunately, codes are not yet up to it, but it's an ongoing process. So I always recommend for you folks to stay on top of code as much as possible. So here are the topics that basically we're going to review. The best way to talk about the future and the present is to look at the past. So we're going to look at some past hurricane data. Again, we're stressing reasons to protect fenestration, the role that impact glass plays in that protection, some videos and some shots of window and door protection testing, and the idea that windows and doors provide 24/7 protection, which is something that we don't always take into consideration when we're thinking about a window or a door. We'll talk about some myths and facts, something that we call the 5S approach, and then last but not least, the way to get some more information that might be particularly relevant to what you do. So here are some stats, and we got them from last year. So obviously they're fairly current. The important thing to know is, and predictions are only as good as they are in the rearview mirror, but the hurricane prediction for this year is to be a very, very active season. The most recorded major hurricanes in recent time was in the year 2020. But if you look at the statistics, you'll see that the least number of major hurricanes we've had in the past 4 years were 2, and that those 2 could equal as much damage as 6. So it obviously depends, although they're considered major hurricanes, it really depends on exactly where they hit, whether the area is more or less populated. So there's a lot of factors. I think it suffices to say that hurricanes present a great threat to our well-being, and that is one of the reasons we're so interested in trying to mitigate damage as much as possible. Here's a little video.
Hey, Nancy?
I'm not sure if there's audio for this, but we might not be hearing the audio.
You're not, wait, hold it 1 second.
Yeah.
You're not seeing it or hearing it?
We
seeing
didn't
it,
hear
just-
it. I didn't hear
Just
it.
not hearing
All
it.
right, well, I'm gonna try to stop it. Let me stop it. Oh, now I have to get rid of it. Hold on.
Oh.
Let me get rid of it. 1 minute. Oh my God. Now I have 2 videos playing. Oh, there we go. Whew. I don't know how to get rid of it.
Maybe if you just X out of the,
Oh. There you go. Sorry.
all
Can we
good.
all hear? Can we
I-
hear me now? That was a very poor thing. Sorry, folks. So I'm not going to play the videos because I don't want you guys have to go through that again. So let me just catch us up. And I don't know why that happened, but we won't put you through that again. Okay. So now back to square 5. Mainland hurricane strikes.
I think you need to share your screen.
Share it. Okay. Let me go back to that. 1 minute. Let me get out of here again. Let's see. Share my screen. Let me go back to my Zoom. 1 minute. Okay. Well, I click on my Zoom and I don't get the way to share it again.
So if you have
Come on.
and you can see where the Zoom controls are that have like the mute button and the end button. You might need to like expand the window a little bit, but there should be that green share screen button.
Yeah, well, I don't see it, of course. Woo, okie dokie. Let me see. I'm here in Zoom, but I'm not seeing it. Not seeing it. Wow, I don't know what to do.
So maybe you have the Zoom window open
Yeah.
and is it all the way expanded?
Well, it's not. I'm going to go back to. Okay, hold on. Exit minimized video. I'm back on. I don't see it. This is really embarrassing.
Do you see the mute button?
No, when I click Zoom, I have this very weird. I have a picture of you and then I have a Zoom, but it doesn't indicate any way for me to. It doesn't give me any way to navigate.
Do you see the end button, like where you would leave the meeting?
Yeah, that I have.
Okay, so wherever that is, it should be in that same bar of controls. Sometimes you need to expand the Zoom window a little bit so that it shows up.
Okay, so I did that because it says leave webinar, which I don't want to do.
Right.
And I click cancel, and it doesn't take me anywhere. Great. That's great. I don't know what to say. Chris, do you have any suggestions? No, maybe I don't.
Sorry, I was muted. I see. I have all I see the share screen button right at the bottom of the screen, right above the normal computer taskbar at the bottom.
You do?
Yeah. I have mine completely expanded. Even with it, contracted a little bit, it still shows up.
Wow. Well, hold on. See, now I'm back on Zoom. Join a meeting, sign in. No, that's not it. Chris, can you pull up can you pull up the presentation by any chance?
Yes, hold on.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. We'll get this back on track shortly. All right, yeah, looks like I don't have the slides, but Chris, if you do and you could share, that would be awesome.
Wow. I literally don't see where that is.
All right, I'm looking to open up the correct presentation. Okay, there. And so let me.
Crazy.
One moment, bear with me and I'll have it open in a second. I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, it's my fault. Let's see. Nope, not doing it. Wow.
I'll get it to you in a second.
It's crazy. I have Chris on my screen.
Yeah, Chris, if you don't have it, if one of you can
Yeah,
just
I
email
do.
me.
I have it. I got it up right now. I'm just trying to get it in the proper okay.
All right,
Do-
awesome. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, we're seeing your.
So moving along here, we were so this is where we left off right here at the agenda, you know, without going through the links. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think this was a good place to repick it up.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to just click along, Nancy, as you present, or do you want me to take over the presentation? Nancy?
You're on mute, Nancy.
I'm unmuted now. Yeah, just click and I'll say next when I'm done for ready for the next.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, next. Okay, next. Okay, so as we were saying, okay, hurricane strikes. So as you can see, okay, category 5s and where they're most likely to hit. And the second most likely to hit are the 4s. So unfortunately, there's a lot more red and black than we would like. The category 1s are pretty prevalent as well. But as you'll see in the next slide, it has to do with the cycle and how long and how often a specific area will be hit again. So we can go to the next slide, Chris. Okay, this is just an indication of how many actual hurricanes, both in the Atlantic and the Pacific, and tropical storms have struck through the year 2017, which is a pretty long time.
From 1851.
Right, from 1851 in the Atlantic and from 1949 in the Pacific.
So
Okay,
yeah, I would say that this graphic representation here just indicates the frequency. Most of these storms are you know, weaker tropical storms and weaker hurricanes. But I think the point is that it's just one major hurricane can do more damage than perhaps 3 or 4 smaller hurricanes.
Good point. Okay, and this is what I was referring to earlier, which is the hurricane return period. So what it means is it's a return period of 20 years for a major storm. That indicates how likely it is for a major storm to hit in any given area again. So in the instance of the red dots, you only have a 5 to 7 year period where you can expect a major storm again. So obviously you don't want to be in the red zones. You'd like to be in the blue if you could, because although there's warnings there, there's not a lot of direct hits of severe hurricanes.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people there in the red zones.
Well, most of us in Florida are always in trouble, and then we're red or yellow, and at the very least green. So Florida's not a great place, and neither are the Carolinas if you want to be avoiding hurricanes. Okay, next. All right, now we're going to talk about why we should protect fenestration. Well, in the video that you saw but didn't hear, it talked about the fact that once an opening is breached, that's where the trouble begins, because it can affect all of the walls, all of the windows and doors, and the roof as well. And once it's breached, it increases the internal pressure in the building 3 times. So that's the danger that's there. And it could be the smallest breach. I mean, even if it just breaches in one window or one door, it's literally saying that the seal is broken. And now you're in the area where you're going to have to start discussing design pressures, which we'll go into in another slide or 2 from now. Okay. So what are design pressures? Well, design pressures are measured in per square feet. And they address what happens when the opening is breached and how it affects the structural loads, how it affects the water infiltration, the wind speeds, and any other aspect that's going to affect any of the windows and doors or other parts that are structural to the building. Chris, do you have anything else you want to add to design pressures?
I mean, for our purposes, I guess it refers to the structural load capacity of the reinforcing unit, which is, the window and the door.
Right. Okay. We're ready for the next. So here's the bird's eye view. Now, obviously, the positive design pressure is addressing where the infiltration is occurring, and the negative design pressure is where that wind load or water is going out on the other side. The important thing to note here is that wind in particularly travels in a circular motion. So even though something's coming out in the negative way, it could be impacted in a positive direction as well. So you kind of get it both ways. Next. You might remember, and again, I don't want to go to the video that we're going to see soon, but this was the only house that remained in Mexico Beach, in Florida Panhandle a couple of years ago. And if you go to the next slide, there is a video, and I don't know, Chris, you might want to try to
I ran into the same issues that you did. It's just cumbersome going to the links. With the embedded videos, it works better. But let me just add this. So this is a result of building a home to withstand a 250 mile an hour wind force. And the code in that part of Florida requires structures to be built to withstand a 120 mile. So the owners went well beyond the code on every aspect of the construction of this house. It is poured concrete walls on top of 40-foot pilings. There's extra rebar in the walls. There's actually steel cables running from the girders up over the house and down the back side of the house. So I don't know if you ever go to St. Augustine and you go to the old part of the city, there's the oldest schoolhouse in America. And it actually has a giant chain draped over it that's been there forever. And that was their hurricane protection back in the 1700s or the 1600s, whenever that structure was built. But it's the same principle with this house, but with much more modern application.
Thanks, Chris. So what are the lessons learned? Well, we're not going to see the YouTube video, but we don't need that because we have Chris, and that's better than the video. The idea being that the owners of this house, who actually were not there when the hurricane struck, talk about how everyone was aghast when they spent all that money building that house, and how the tables were turned when they were the last house standing. So if you click on these links, which you may or may not want to do, the Fortified Home Program basically addresses the standards by which they built this house. And there's a special section which addresses the window insights. And these folks followed all of those. So hopefully after this presentation, we'll be able to forward you all the links that I should have been able to send you. And I think that you'll just see supporting documentation for what Chris talked about.
Yeah, just to add, the only damage to that house was, I think, an exterior staircase was ripped away. 2 windows were cracked, and it wasn't the laminated impact resistant glass. It was the sacrificial panes on the insulated glass, and they left a ceiling fan on one of the lanais out, and the wind got a hold of that and took it with a good portion of the ceiling in the general area where it was. But I mean, that's very, very minimal compared to other houses were just scrubbed away off the land.
So in countries without building codes, I know that we all remember the Haiti earthquake, and in that earthquake where there literally is no building codes, they had more than 200,000 deaths. In the next slide, you'll see that, go to the next one, in the Chile earthquake, which does have building codes, and they had an 8.8 magnitude, 500,000 buildings were destroyed, but only, and I don't want to make light of 795 lives, but it certainly doesn't compare to 200,000. So building codes rule, and we know that. And going back to something that Chris mentioned, the sacrificial glass, which he's referring to, just speaks to the fact that the impact portion of the window was not breached. And just to give you an idea of how important it is to have impact glass, our company, for instance, although I'm not really going to suggest that our company is better than any other, but just to give you an example, we've had 0 failures in 14 million windows. So the point being, use impact resistant rated glass, no matter who builds it or manufactures it. It's really a no-brainer, especially in Florida. So here we are with impact glass manufacturing details. So here, different kinds of glass. There's untreated annealed or raw float glass, which if you break it, you're familiar with it. It's inexpensive glass. It's like if you have a picture frame and it breaks, it's going to shatter into a lot of different pieces, and it's going to be really sharp, and it's going to be really dangerous. So it's the least strong, and it's the most dangerous. If you go up a level to heat strengthened glass, it's twice as strong. It's still going to break into pieces, though they'll be much larger, and it's only used in a laminated product. So you can see that it will still shatter in large pieces, but it's twice as strong. So the likelihood is half of what it would be in untreated. When you get into fully tempered, which is really where you want to be, those are 4 times as strong as annealed, and it breaks into 1/4-inch pieces, which are very little pieces, and they obviously can hurt you, but it much lower likelihood and much less serious injury. And then when you get up to the 4th level and you're talking about laminated, that's where you get your impact resistant, which meets all the glazing codes. And when they talk about hurricane resistance and using a projectile test to it, that's the glass that they're referring to. When they shoot something out of a cannon that you see often, that's the glass that they're talking about, laminated glass. Next. What is laminated glass? It's made of 2 panes of glass joined together by PVB, and the PVB is sandwiched in between the 2 layers to give it its strength. And the PVB helps keep the glass stiff and sturdy, which means it keeps it in place. And even if it shatters, those pieces will stay in place. So they don't become projectiles and they don't leave the frame, therefore preventing bodily harm specifically.
Yeah, and I would add that, the glass can be shattered in spider web, and it's the inner layer that's holding that glass together, and not only preventing bodily harm, but preventing the envelope of the house to be breached, and then the pressure builds up inside, blows out your walls or blows out your roof. So it is literally and figuratively the heart of the impact window.
There you go. This is just talking about the kinds of products that are used in the manufacturing of the impact, the part that's keeping it together. And these are the two primary products that are available. The DuPont product is more rigid than the PVB and less pliable, and is typically used on larger frames, but both of those, or either one of those, is vital to the integrity of the laminated glass.
Yeah, it's PVB is by far the most common. Century Glass Plus is like Nancy said, used on larger units or doors. And just to add, it needs to be stored and transported at less than 70 degrees, because at that temperature, it will start to activate and become tacky and will start adhering to itself. And then once that happens, it's ruined. You can't use it, and it's very expensive. It a little over $11,000 per roll. So you want to be very careful with it and use it efficiently.
Okay, so now we'll talk about an autoclave. Some of you may know what it is. Please, were you going to say something, Chris?
What's that?
I thought you said something. It's like a giant pressure cooker. And so when you put the glass in the autoclave in a sequence of cycles, you're going to apply different pressures and temperatures to achieve the integrity of the glass. So let's talk about what goes on there. So it's a batch lamination in autoclave. It's generally speaking a 90-minute cycle, and there's 240 parts in the 90 minutes. And so it goes into the autoclave, it goes into the, the next step is for it to go into the nip roll, and then it goes into the preheated oven. The PVB layup is added. It's cut, it's enameled, it goes into the bending oven, and it's cleaned. And then you have your final cleaning, your inspection, and your distribution. So a typical autoclave lamination cycle pressure is to 180 per square inch, which is a 12.4 bar, and the temperature is to 280 Fahrenheit or 137 Celsius. And as I said, the cycle completes in 90 minutes, and then the cooling is ramped down at a controlled rate to prevent the glass from failing. You don't want it to be, it's like putting, you don't want it to be too cool too quickly. And here we are 2 hours later. Well, 90 minutes plus another 30 here. The racks are pulled out, and the autoclaves, and then the vinyl interlayer at that point is perfectly clear. It would appear to be that greenish color before it's completely clear.
So yes, when it is laid up and the PVB is placed in between the two layers of glass, the glass is opaque like the inner layer is in those rolls, and until it comes out of the autoclave, it isn't clear. It's opaque like that. Once the process is finished, it's perfectly clear, like what you see there. And if you'll notice, those spacers on the edges of the glass, what those do is they keep the units about a quarter inch, or I'm sorry, about 3/4 inch apart, which allows the heat and the pressure to get in between all the units and do what it needs to do.
So what exactly is laminated glass? So as we've said before, and just to reiterate, it's 2 panes in 1 window, and there's an air pocket in between, and that air pocket is usually, it can contain insulating gas that can be added, or it can just be the air pocket in and of itself. And it's the most highly energy efficient way to keep your home cool as well. So it's not only protecting you from the hurricane factor, but it is also an insulation factor. Now, in cooler climates, that's more important because you want to keep the cold out. It's not quite as important here or in southern areas or warmer regions because we don't have the cold temperatures that affect us. But it's a good overall addition to add to the performance and the protection that the laminated glass offers. And that's laminated insulated, I might add. Insulated is one thing, but when it's laminated as well, that's where you're getting your extra addressing the temperature factor.
So yeah, and also it when you the low E coating, when you're talking about cooler climates or warmer climates, the low E coating plays a big part in that on which surface you apply it to. So let's say it's always applied to the inside of the cavity. So if you apply it on the interior side or the exterior side, determines whether it's going to keep heat in or keep heat out.
That's basically just a blow up of what Chris was talking about before. And it indicates where the glass is, the laminated glass being the outer layer, the interlayer, right? And then
there's the 2 panes with the inner layer in the center of that. Then you have the thermoplastic spacer, which is it's applied on an automated machine that extrudes it out along the perimeter of the glass, and then the sacrificial pane is applied to top of that, on top of that, and creates it fuses together. Then it's placed in a multi-chambered frame that also has it has I'm at a loss.
Well, it's just there.
Warm edge spacer technology.
Right.
I'm sorry. So there's no, it's not like it's thermally broken, but it acts partially like that. Then the chambers do this. They act in the same way of slowing down the solar heat gain or through the frame as the glass does with the cavity between the laminated pane and the sacrificial pane.
So again, this is really just reiterating and putting in simpler terms Chris's detailed explanation, which is indicating the thermoplastic spacer that's put and keeps the sacrificial glass apart from the impact resistant. And then it talks about the Duraseal and then the super spacer, again, applied in between the 2 panes that are protecting the inner glass.
Yeah, I think at one point Duraseal is probably the most common one. I'm sure everyone's seen the spacers with the perforated aluminum strip on top of rubberized material. But I think the industry has moved more towards the thermoplastic spacer. And I personally have never seen super spacer. So
okay. So this is just the section that addresses window and door protection requirements, and it's saying that exterior glazing located in windborne debris regions should be protected from windborne debris. So the glazed opening shall meet the requirements of the missile testing, which I had addressed earlier, And those are the standards that it has to meet. So window and door protection testing, and this addresses windborne debris regions. So obviously you can see that the areas in blue are going to be the areas where the basic wind speed is 140 miles per hour or greater. And then those huge numbers that you see, where you see 180 degrees on the right-hand side, that's, obviously Miami-Dade County and Broward County, and going up the coast pretty much to Indian River County on the east coast of Florida are the areas that are most vulnerable. And then on the west coast, you can see the areas that are most vulnerable. Ironically, Chris lives in Tampa, which usually avoids all the hurricanes, and I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. And then the other most vulnerable area indicated is in the tip of the panhandle that is adjacent to Alabama, which is also very vulnerable to very strong storm, very high winds and hurricanes.
Well, just a little background about Tampa and hurricanes. Apparently, according to the Tocobaga Indians, it is a god that keeps the hurricanes away from about the middle of Longboat Key up to Safety Harbor.
Okay,
so a little history factoid for everyone.
This is just a chart that discusses the missile level testing, the wind zones that are addressed, and going up to zone 5, which is obviously going to be the area that's the most vulnerable. Chris, do you have anything?
I believe wind zone 5 is down Broward, Dade,
right,
maybe Lee, but the whole shaded area, everything in the shaded area other than that is wind zone 4, which requires large missile D testing for fenestration that's located within 30 feet of the ground. Any fenestration above that, 30 feet or greater above the ground, requires small missile testing A, which is large missile D is 9-pound 2x4 shot at 50 feet per second, where missile level A, small missile, is 10 2-gram steel balls shot at 130 feet per second. That's for everything above 30 feet.
And that's pretty much reiterating what Chris just said, that the testing requires 9,000 cycles over the course of 8 hours and 4,500 cycles per side. So obviously you're testing it from both sides. It's pretty self-explanatory. Going back to what Chris said a moment ago, though, about the height, that is why you have greater issues in high-rise buildings than you do in single-story or just mid-rise buildings, because as you go up higher, obviously the wind speed changes and increases exponentially.
Right, and I don't believe the same type of debris is set aloft by high winds. All the larger stuff is generally below 30 feet.
Exactly.
In here, this video I think actually works, so let's try it.
Oh, okay.
So what that is, that's the air pressure cycling test. So that it does that in and out 4,500 times. And then at the halfway point, they take that unit out and turn it around and reinstall it and do it 4,500 more times. And that takes about 8 hours to do. And I mean, this is for another CEU, but what they will do is they'll look at the impacts and see if there's any tear in the inner layer. And I think there's tolerances that are allowable. If you go over, say, 4 inches at 3/4 inch wide, then it fails. And it's not only impacted on the glass in the middle of the unit, it will be impacted on the glass in the corners it'll be impacted on the corners of the frame, or even if it's like a double hung or a single hung that has a meeting rail, it'll be impacted on the meeting rail and then tested as well. Oh.
So I don't know if this video works.
Yeah, it does. These are the two that are embedded that actually you don't have to go through a link.
Right.
So
and this addresses what I had said earlier about the 24/7 protection, and it goes more to the safety issue, security issue, I should say, rather than the safety issue. So I don't see anything working, but basically,
here we go. Well, I mean, just basically what this is the ultimate result of everything we've been talking about impact glass.
oh yeah, here we go. And obviously the glass is shattering, but it's still not allowing them to permeate the glass and enter the facility. So that's the point.
Yeah, you know, it's only a minute long. Actually, it's less than a minute because it takes a few seconds for them to walk up. And basically, they quit trying to get through at 45 seconds, which may not sound like a long time, but it's definitely more than enough time to hear the beating that door system is taking, and for someone to alert the police or a homeowner to hear what's going on and you know, take appropriate action. If it was non-impact glass, it would have been breached within 2 strikes. They'd be in under 30 seconds and grab whatever they can and be gone in less than 2 minutes. Oh.
So as we were saying before, the 24/7 rule is the value that laminated impact glass brings to a property, and it addresses the energy efficiency while it's providing the impact resistant benefits. It's also a great noise barrier. You can see that a lot of times. It does cut down on the street noise, so that's important. It provides a protection against hot and cold traveling through the glass, which we addressed before. And it also helps to meet building codes that contractors are involved in. So it's always on protecting, it's always protecting your investment, it's always reducing sound, it's always reducing energy efficiency. So it's on 24/7.
Yeah, and another thing, it's I've lived in the house that I live in since 2001. We remodeled in 2007 before impact was code. So I replaced all my windows. None of them are impact. And I mean, I've lived through 2004 when 4 hurricanes struck Florida. And every year after, I have plywood in my garage stacked up. It's just a guessing game of which way the hurricane's going to turn. When do I need to start boarding up? And it's a huge stressor and a huge inconvenience. And if I could go back in time and get paid roughly double is what impact windows cost, but I would gladly do it.
So then, Chris, you have the Indians looking over you, but we have a higher code, so we're in better shape than you are.
Right. Well,
there you
what's
go.
the scoreboard like?
That's it.
I'll go with the Tocobogas.
Okay. So during a hurricane, this is a myth. Crack your window open to equalize the pressure. Well, we already learned with design pressures that any infiltration is not good infiltration, and the wind pressures are going to build up until something blows, and most likely it's going to be the roof. And once you have the roof blown, you have the water infiltration. So the idea behind this is it's not good to crack your window. No compromising of any fenestration is a good thing for protecting a home. Putting duct tape on your glass. Okay, unfortunately, for those of us that don't have impact windows, plywood does work. Duct tape does not. It's a waste of time, and it gives you a false sense of security. So It's not good to use duct tape on glass. It has no
Ye-
effect. And in fact, when it shatters, and it's more likely than not, unannealed glass, you're going to have those huge shards, which are a huge problem.
Yeah, it's just creating a bunch of tedious work, and wasting a lot of time. And if you don't get it off right away, after a few days, the sun will bake that adhesive onto your glass. And I still ride around Tampa, and I'll see old houses with the patterns of tape on it, where the adhesive is baked on, and who knows how many years that is, how many decades old that is. It's not a good look.
Okay, and we also showed in the design pressure diagrams, only the ones facing the water need to be protected. That's definitely not true. During a hurricane, the wind shift direction changes, as you can see indicated here by the arrows. So regardless of the direction of the wind force, the opposite side of the house has the negative pressures, which we talked about, and can in some cases be even stronger than the positive. So you really can't escape it. It's not a direct hit. A direct hit can come from the circulation of the storm. And as we said, impact glass will not break. It's a myth. But if it breaks and it's struck with sufficient force, and it will break, it will remain in the opening up to most limits to help protect the structure from collapse and not allowing for the design pressures to be impactful on the structure. All products are the same. Well, we know they're not. Obviously, Hurricane Andrew in 1992 was the forerunner of the development of hurricane-resistant glass, and our company happened to have been the ones that were involved in the pioneering of that glass. But now there's a lot of people that do it, and there's more than enough reason to use any one of them. Just use the one, okay? That is giving you the least opportunity for infiltration, and you're going to protect yourselves and your property in many ways. So just remember, we're not talking about brands, we're talking about types of glass, and all windows are not created equal. So here are just to go over the 5S approach, which is basically a reiteration of what Chris and I have been talking about. You're having the protection from exterior noise, so that's sound. The safety factor, you don't want to have either property or damage to person from shattered glass. The security factor, which is illustrated by those two guys trying to break the window with the baseball bat. The protection from UV fading, which as we know here is crucial to the protection of contents of property, and protecting ourselves from the storm. That's the 5 S's. This is just, again, reiterate. Nope, it's okay.
I'm sorry about that.
No, listen, you're doing great. Thank you. Okay, so laminated glass can reduce perceived noise. The important to know, perceived by up to 50%. Laminated glass resists the impact. The windows, as far as security, we discussed. A good thing to know is that UV protection is equivalent to SPF 72. So you have a good idea of how that works, because we always use it in our suntan lotion. And the doors and windows are your best bet to protect against the storm on any given structure.
So yeah, I'd just like to add to this an experience I had. Years and years ago, I was in the cabinetry industry, and we had a dealer in Sarasota that in their window display had a very nice wood veneer cabinetry. It was cherry, and it got beat on by the sun every day for 6 months, and it turned orange. And I've also seen, the fading of fabric near windows. So it's a real issue that we've had. I've heard a lot of people, complain about it, and there's nothing to be done about it other than move the product away from the window, or have have some sort of solar mitigation.
So there's our website that we invite you to go to, and these are some other websites that we actually had the videos from, which we were unable to share. And so we'll get with Bo and figure out how to share those videos with you, so you can at least be exposed to the information that they share. I think it's useful. Again, I apologize profusely for my technological ineptitude. I'm very indebted to Chris. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking that part over from me. And we would like to invite any questions. Chris, if you go to the next slide, it's going to give Chris's information. I recommend you contact Chris for any further information, but we're here to answer all the questions that you have.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Chris and Nancy. And we do have some questions. I know we're a bit past 2 p.m. So it looks like we've got some folks who are still staying on. I'll leave it up to you, Nancy and Chris, if you want to proceed with answering questions now live, or if you want to save them to follow up with after the event.
I think we should do both. I think we should answer them live
Yeah.
in the event that the questioner is on, and then we can distribute the answers as well.
Okay, great. Sounds good. So yeah, appreciate anyone who's able to stay on for a few more moments as we do some Q&A. And if you have any last minute questions, feel free to submit them now. Also, if anyone is jumping off, there's going to be a quick post-event survey. You can submit any questions there as well. All right, I believe we covered this, but how does the cost of impact windows compare to standard windows? Chris, I believe you said about double.
Yeah, it's about double.
But you have to also
As a rule of thumb.
Yeah. And well, and the thing is, you're taking into consideration that rule that we discussed, which is for every dollar spent, $6 is saved. So even though it's
That's a good
initially,
point.
when you look at cost, you always have to amortize it over the life of the product. So even though twice sounds high, I can guarantee you that if you amortize it and you look at the final bottom line, it's really not a difference in price if you're talking about bang for your buck.
No, and I can tell you from experience, when you're measuring openings and sawing plywood a day before a hurricane is going to make landfall in your area, you'll wish you had spent the extra money.
All right, awesome. What is the lifespan of the laminated insulated glass panel that you showed with the thermoplastic spacer, sacrificial paint, etc.?
I can give you, well, I think the warranty is 10 years.
I
mean,
well,
as from experience, I've come across windows that had no seal failure, were in good condition, that were over 20 years, 25 years.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, in the course of being in this business, I think we've found that there's rarely, if any, a claim for the failure of the window in any period less than 25 years.
I mean, mostly it's like there's no delamination of the glass. I've never seen that. What I will see is seal failure, where you'll start to get some condensation inside the cavity of the window. And that's definitely a quality issue.
Right. Is laminated single glazing available?
Yes.
Awesome. What would be, oh, go ahead if you have some more to say.
It's I see it more common in warmer climates, but it definitely is available.
Awesome. All right, what could be causing the wicking issue with the laminated glass and silicone butt joints in my projects built in 1995 and 2005? And what steps could be taken to address this problem effectively?
I'm not sure specifically, but I know that if you look at butt, was the question about butt jointed glass with silicone?
Laminated glass
Okay.
from butt joints.
Yeah. Okay. So windows, if you look closely at a lot of butt jointed glass, you'll see that the tinning and the low E and everything stops about a 1/4 inch or 3/4 inch, what have you, away from the edge of the glass. And I believe that is if you take the tinting and the glazing or in the low E all the way to the edge, it'll allow for that to for the color to wick in and the discoloration to happen. So it's a process called edge deletion that when you see it that it stops, you know, a distance from the edge. That's what prevents that from happening.
All right, awesome. Looks like we might have worked through them all. I'm just seeing some thank yous. Jay says it was very well presented and informative. So thank you so much, Jay, for coming out today.
No,
And thank
thanks,
you,
Jay.
audience. All right, cool. Well, with that, I hope everyone has a good day. Appreciate everybody who stuck on for a few moments to hear some of that Q&A. Again, as you're leaving, feel free to submit any questions to the survey as well. Really appreciate any feedback you can give us there so that we can keep bringing you content that's relevant to you. And thank you so much, Chris and Nancy, for a great presentation. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Bo. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Helen.
Thanks, Bill.